My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm about to tell you the story of how a routine doctor's appointment destroyed my marriage and saved my life. If you've ever trusted someone completely, only to discover they were destroying you from the inside, hit that subscribe button. Because what happened in that examination room changed everything I thought I knew about the man I'd been married to for 15 years. It was a Tuesday morning in late September. I remember because the leaves were just starting to turn orange outside the medical center windows, and I was thinking how beautiful fall was in Connecticut. I had scheduled my annual gynecological exam weeks ago, fitting it between dropping the kids at school and my shift at the community library where I worked part-time. Just another routine checkup. Nothing special, nothing to worry about. I sat in the waiting room, scrolling through my phone, looking at photos from our family beach trip last month. David, my husband, had his arm around me in one picture, both of us smiling at the camera while our kids, Emma and Noah, built sandcastles behind us. We looked happy. We looked perfect. And I believed we were. Dr. Rebecca Chen had been my gynecologist for 8 years. She was professional, kind, and always made me feel comfortable during what most women find to be uncomfortable appointments. When the nurse called my name, I followed her back to the examination room, changed into the paper gown, and waited. The usual routine. Nothing felt different. Nothing felt wrong. Dr. Chen entered with her tablet and her warm smile. We chatted about my kids, about the upcoming school year, about nothing important. The examination began normally. She asked the standard questions. Any pain? Any irregular bleeding? Any concerns? I answered no to everything. I felt fine, healthy, normal. But then something shifted. I was lying back on the examination table when I noticed Dr. Chen's expression change. Her smile faded. Her eyebrows drew together in concentration. She was silent for a moment, looking at something I couldn't see, and then she said quietly, "Sarah, I need to run some additional tests. Just routine, but I want to be thorough." Her tone made my stomach tighten. It wasn't her usual casual voice. There was something careful in the way she spoke, like she was choosing her words with precision. I sat up slightly, trying to read her face. "Is something wrong?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Let me get the results first. I don't want to worry you unnecessarily. Give me about 20 minutes, and I'll come back to discuss everything." 20 minutes. Those were the longest 20 minutes of my life. I sat in that cold examination room, still in my paper gown, staring at the educational posters on the walls about women's health and reproductive systems. My mind raced through possibilities. Cancer, tumors, something terrible. I thought about my kids, about David, about everything I would miss if something was seriously wrong with me. When Dr. Chen finally returned, she wasn't alone. A nurse came with her, which immediately made my anxiety spike even higher. Doctors don't bring nurses for good news. They sat down, and Dr. Chen placed her tablet on the counter, turning to face me directly. "Sarah," she began slowly, "I need to ask you some very personal questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Everything we discuss here is confidential, and I'm here to help you, not to judge you." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Okay," I whispered. "Have you had any sexual partners other than your husband in the past few years?" The question stunned me. "What? No, never. David is the only person I've been with since we got married 15 years ago. Why are you asking me this?" Dr. Chen exchanged a glance with the nurse, then looked back at me with an expression that mixed concern and sadness. "Sarah, the tests show that you've contracted chlamydia. It's a sexually transmitted infection." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my face go numb. My hands started shaking, and suddenly the room felt too small, too hot, too bright. "That's impossible," I said, my voice cracking. "I've only been with David. Only him. There must be a mistake." "There's no mistake," Dr. Chen said gently. "The tests are very accurate, and based on the progression and your medical history, you've likely had this infection for several months, possibly longer." I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing my lungs. "But I don't understand. If I've only been with David, then that means—" "I know this is devastating to hear," Dr. Chen interrupted softly. "But yes, the only way you could have contracted this is if your husband has been sexually active with someone else and transmitted it to you." The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the examination table, trying to steady myself. Tears burned in my eyes. but I refuse to let them fall. Not yet. Not here. Are you absolutely certain? Dr. Chen nodded. I'm certain. And Sarah, there's something else you need to know. Chlamydia can be asymptomatic, which means you might not show obvious symptoms, but if left untreated, it can cause serious complications. Pelvic inflammatory disease, infertility, chronic pain. You need treatment immediately. Infertility. The word echoed in my head. We had talked about having another baby. Just last month, David had mentioned maybe trying for one more child. And all that time, he was carrying an infection. He was betraying me. He was risking my health, my body, my future. I'll prescribe antibiotics for you, Dr. Chen continued, and I strongly recommend that your husband get tested and treated as well. He needs to know he's infected, and he needs to inform any other partners he may have had. Any other partners? The phrase made bile rise in my throat. My husband. The man who promised to love and cherish me. The father of my children. The person I trusted more than anyone in the world had been sleeping with someone else. And not just once. Not just a drunken mistake. This had been going on for months. I sat there in that paper gown, feeling more exposed and vulnerable than I ever had in my life. And something inside me shifted. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was rage. Cold, focused rage that started in my chest and spread through my entire body. Thank you, I managed to say to Dr. Chen, my voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for telling me. She reached out and squeezed my hand. Sarah, I know this is overwhelming, but you're going to get through this. If you need resources, support groups, counseling, or even just someone to talk to, please call me. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The nurse handed me my prescription and some informational pamphlets about STIs and treatment options. I took them with numb fingers, got dressed mechanically, and walked out of that medical center into the bright autumn sunshine, feeling like a completely different person than the one who had walked in an hour ago. My hands shook so badly I could barely get my car keys into the ignition. I sat in the parking lot, staring at the steering wheel, as the reality of what I'd just learned crashed over me in waves. David had cheated. David had lied. David had put my health at risk without a second thought, and he had come home every single night, kissed me hello, ate dinner with our family, and slept beside me as if nothing was wrong. How long had this been going on? Who was she? Did I know her? Did our friends know? Were people laughing at me behind my back, pitying the stupid wife who had no idea her husband was screwing around? I pulled out my phone and stared at David's contact information. My thumb hovered over the call button. Part of me wanted to call him immediately, to scream at him, to demand answers. But another part of me, the part that was rapidly taking control, told me to wait, to think, to plan. Because if I called him now, emotional and unprepared, he would lie. He would make excuses. He would manipulate me the way he'd obviously been manipulating me for months. And I would be too hurt, too shocked to see through it clearly. No, I needed to be smart about this. I needed evidence. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with before I confronted him. I started the car and drove home, my mind racing the entire way. Our house looked exactly the same as it had this morning when I'd left. The flower beds I'd planted last spring were blooming beautifully. The lawn was freshly mowed. David's car was gone, of course. He was at work at his accounting firm downtown. Our kids were at school for another 3 hours. I walked into our home, the home we'd bought together 10 years ago, the home where we'd raised our children, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays and anniversaries. And suddenly, it felt like a stranger's house, like a stage set for a play where I'd been performing the role of the happy wife while everyone else knew the truth. I went straight to our bedroom, to David's nightstand. My heart pounded as I opened the drawer, not even sure what I was looking for. His phone was with him at work, obviously, but there had to be something, some clue I'd been too trusting, too naive to notice before. The drawer contained the usual items: reading glasses, a book he'd been working through for months, charging cables, nothing suspicious. I checked his dresser drawers next, feeling like a detective in my own home, hating that I'd been reduced to this. In the back of his sock drawer, buried under layers of athletic socks, my fingers touched something that didn't belong. I pulled it out. A phone. A second phone. A cheap prepaid smartphone that I'd never seen before. My breath caught. Why would David have a secret phone? I turned it on with shaking hands, praying it wasn't password protected. It wasn't. The screen lit up, and my entire world shattered. The messages were right there. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Text conversations filled with intimate details, plans to meet up, explicit photos. And the contact name at the top of the most recent conversation made my blood turn to ice. Jennifer. Jennifer Morrison. My best friend. The woman I'd known since college. The person I'd confided in about everything. Who came to our house for dinners. Who my kids called Aunt Jen. The woman who'd hugged me at my mother's funeral last year and told me she'd always be there for me. She was the one. She was sleeping with my husband. I scrolled through the messages with numb fingers, each one a knife twisting deeper into my chest. They talked about me, about how pathetic I was, how boring, how David couldn't wait to leave me but was waiting for the right time, how Jennifer found it hilarious that I had no idea what was happening right under my nose. One message from 2 weeks ago made me stop breathing. David, Sarah's been talking about having another baby. Can you believe that? Like I'd ever want to be tied to her for another 18 years. Jennifer, LOL. You need to tell her soon. This is getting ridiculous. Everyone knows except her. Everyone knows. Everyone knows except her. The humiliation crashed over me like a tidal wave. Our friends knew. Our social circle knew. I'd been the joke. The fool. The stupid, trusting wife while my husband and my best friend laughed at me behind my back. I should have collapsed. I should have broken down crying on the bedroom floor. But instead, something cold and hard settled into my chest where my heart used to be. They thought I was pathetic. They thought I was weak. They thought I would be too broken, too destroyed to fight back. They were wrong. I took photos of every message, every photo, every piece of evidence on that phone. I sent them to my own email, created a backup in the cloud, and carefully placed the phone back exactly where I'd found it. David couldn't know I'd discovered his secret. Not yet. Then I went to our home office and logged into our bank accounts. We had a joint checking account, a joint savings account, and a money market account with our emergency funds. I looked at the recent transactions, really looked at them for the first time in months. Charges at hotels I'd never been to, expensive restaurants I'd never visited, jewelry purchases I'd never received. David had been spending our money on her, on Jennifer, while I'd been clipping coupons and buying generic brands at the grocery store to save money for our kids' college funds. He'd been wining and dining his mistress with our family's resources. The rage that had been building inside me since Dr. Chen's office intensified. This wasn't just an affair. This was theft. This was fraud. This was a complete betrayal of everything we'd built together. I opened a new browser window and searched for divorce attorneys in Connecticut. I needed the best. I needed someone ruthless. Someone who would fight for me the way I was about to fight for myself. After reading dozens of reviews, I found her. Patricia Donovan, a divorce attorney with a reputation for absolutely destroying cheating spouses in court. Her consultation fee was expensive, but I didn't care. I booked an appointment for tomorrow morning, using my personal credit card that David had no access to. Then I made another call, to Dr. Chen's office. When the receptionist answered, I asked to speak to the doctor directly. After a brief hold, Dr. Chen's concerned voice came on the line. "Sarah, are you all right?" "Dr. Chen," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I need documentation, medical records, test results, everything that proves when I contracted this infection and that the only possible source was my husband. Can you provide that?" There was a pause, and then Dr. Chen said quietly, "You're planning to divorce him." "I'm planning to make sure he loses everything," I replied. "Can you help me?" "I'll have comprehensive medical documentation ready for you by tomorrow afternoon," Dr. Chen said. "Sarah, I'm proud of you. You're doing the right thing." After I hung up, I sat in the office chair and looked around at the life I'd built. The family photos on the walls, the kids' artwork stuck to the refrigerator with magnets, the comfortable, safe existence I'd believed in. It had all been a lie. But I wasn't going to be a victim. I was going to be a survivor. I spent the rest of the afternoon researching. Connecticut divorce law, asset division, child custody, my rights, his obligations. I read everything I could find, taking notes, preparing myself for the battle ahead. When the kids came home from school, I greeted them with hugs and snacks like always, helping with homework, listening to their stories about their day. Emma was excited about her upcoming dance recital. Noah had scored a goal in soccer practice. Normal, beautiful childhood moments that I refused to let David's betrayal destroy. When David came home at 6:30, I heard his key in the lock and felt my entire body tense. But I forced myself to stay calm, to smile, to act like everything was normal. "Hey, honey," he called out, exactly like he did every evening. "Something smells amazing. What's for dinner?" I'd made his favorite meal, pot roast with potatoes and carrots. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, playing the devoted wife one last time while planning his complete destruction. "Dinner's almost ready," I called back sweetly. "How was work?" He walked into the kitchen, loosened his tie, and kissed my cheek. The same casual kiss he'd given me thousands of times before, except now I knew where his lips had been, what they'd done, who they'd been kissing. Work was fine, boring meetings all afternoon. He opened the refrigerator and grabbed a beer. "How was your day?" "Interesting," I said, stirring the gravy. "I had my annual checkup this morning." I watched him carefully. Did his shoulders tense? Did his hand freeze on the beer bottle? But no. He just nodded casually and took a drink. "Everything okay?" he asked, not really interested. "Actually, the doctor found something," I continued, keeping my voice light. "Nothing too serious. Just an infection that needs antibiotics. She said you should probably get checked out too, just to be safe." Now I saw it. The briefest flicker of something in his eyes. Panic? Fear? But it was gone in an instant, replaced by his usual calm expression. "What kind of infection?" he asked. "A bacterial infection," I lied smoothly. "She said it's pretty common and easily treatable, but since we're sexually active, you should get tested too. She can't be sure how I got it, but she wants to rule out that it's transmissible." David shrugged and took another drink of his beer. "Sure. I'll make an appointment next week." Next week. He said next week like it was no big deal. Like he wasn't carrying a sexually transmitted infection that he'd passed to his wife. Like he gave a damn about my health or well-being. I turned back to the stove before he could see the fury in my eyes. "Great. Just let me know when you schedule it." Dinner proceeded normally. The kids chattered about school. David checked his phone periodically, probably texting Jennifer. I smiled and nodded and played my part perfectly. That night, after the kids were asleep, David reached for me in bed. His hand slid across my waist, pulling me closer, and I felt my skin crawl. This man who'd been inside someone else, who'd brought disease into our marriage bed, who'd been laughing at me with his mistress, actually thought I would have sex with him. "I'm really tired," I said, moving away, "and I'm on antibiotics now. Doctor, Chen said we should wait until I'm finished with treatment." "Come on, Sarah," David said, his voice taking on a slightly annoyed edge. "It's been over a week. Over a week." He was actually complaining, while he had a mistress, while he'd infected me with an STD. The audacity was breathtaking. "David, I'm literally being treated for an infection," I said firmly. "We need to wait." He sighed dramatically and rolled away from me. "Fine. Whatever." I lay there in the darkness, listening to him fall asleep within minutes, completely unbothered by my rejection. And I realized that he probably didn't care because he had Jennifer. He wasn't missing me. He wasn't even thinking about me. But I was thinking, planning, preparing for what came next. The following morning, I dropped the kids at school and drove straight to Patricia Donovan's law office. The building was elegant and professional, exactly what I needed. When the receptionist led me back to Patricia's office, I found a woman in her mid-50s with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said, gesturing to a chair, "tell me everything." So I did. I started with the doctor's appointment, the diagnosis, the secret phone, the messages between David and Jennifer. I showed her every screenshot, every piece of evidence I'd collected. I explained our financial situation, our assets, our children. Patricia listened without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she looked up at me with an expression that was equal parts sympathy and determination. "Your husband is an idiot," she said bluntly. "He left a trail a mile wide, and you collected evidence like a professional. We're going to destroy him." Hearing those words from a professional made something loosen in my chest. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I was justified, and I had an advocate who believed me. "I want full custody of the kids," I said. "I want the house. I want him to pay for what he's done." "Connecticut is an equitable distribution state," Patricia explained, "which means we divide assets fairly, not necessarily equally, But fare can be very much in your favor when your spouse committed adultery, engaged in financial misconduct, and exposed you to health risks. We'll file for divorce on grounds of adultery. The medical documentation you're getting will be critical evidence. I want one more thing, I said quietly. I want to be the one who tells him, not through lawyers, not through papers served at his office. I want to look him in the eye and let him know that I know everything. Patricia studied me for a moment. That's risky. He could destroy evidence. He could empty accounts. He won't have time, I interrupted. I want to do it publicly, in front of everyone who knew about the affair, everyone who laughed at me. I want them all to see exactly who David really is. A slow smile spread across Patricia's face. You have something specific in mind, don't you? Our 15th wedding anniversary is in 2 weeks, I said. Jennifer and David's husband, Mark, are planning a surprise party for us at our house. At least that's what they told me. I'm sure it's really just another opportunity for them to laugh at the stupid wife. So you want to use their party, Patricia said, nodding slowly. Turn their celebration into your revelation. Exactly. Can we prepare everything by then? Have all the papers ready? All the evidence organized? Patricia leaned back in her chair, her smile growing wider. Oh, we can absolutely do that. This is going to be the anniversary party they never forget. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. During the day, I was still Sarah Mitchell, devoted wife and mother. I helped with party planning. I pretended to be excited about the anniversary celebration. I thanked Jennifer for being such a wonderful friend. At night, after David was asleep, I worked with Patricia. We documented everything. We prepared divorce papers with detailed evidence of David's adultery and financial misconduct. We froze assets quietly through legal channels. We built a case that was absolutely airtight. I also did something else. I hired a private investigator. Richard Santos had 20 years of experience catching cheating spouses, and he was worth every penny. Within days, he had photographs of David and Jennifer together at hotels, restaurants, even at Jennifer's house while her husband Mark was at work. But the most valuable thing Richard found was something even I hadn't known about. David had been embezzling money from his accounting firm. Small amounts at first, then larger sums, funneling client funds into a personal account that he used to support his affair. It was fraud. It was illegal. And it gave me leverage I hadn't even dreamed of. This is a criminal matter, Patricia said when I showed her the evidence. We need to decide if we're going to report this or use it as negotiation leverage. Keep it for now, I said. Let's see how the anniversary party goes. Doctor, Chen provided detailed medical records documenting everything. The infection timeline, the treatment protocol, a professional medical opinion stating that the only possible source of transmission was my husband. It was devastating evidence that would hold up in any court. The night before the party, I barely slept. My heart raced with anticipation and fear. Part of me wondered if I should just file quietly, end the marriage without the confrontation. But no. They had humiliated me privately for months. They deserved to be exposed publicly. The day of the party arrived. Jennifer came over early to help set up decorations. She hugged me and said, "I'm so happy for you and David. 15 years is such a milestone." I hugged her back, feeling her betrayal like poison between us. "Thank you for everything you've done," I said sweetly. "You really are the best friend anyone could ask for." She smiled, and I wondered how she could look me in the eye knowing what she'd done, but I matched her smile with my own. After tonight, she'd never smile at me again. Guests started arriving at 6. Friends from David's work, neighbors, people from our church. Jennifer's husband, Mark, came with a bottle of expensive wine, completely oblivious to the fact that his wife had been sleeping with my husband for 2 years. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. David arrived home from work, genuinely surprised by the gathering. "You guys did all this?" he said, grinning as everyone shouted surprise. He kissed my cheek, and I felt nothing but cold determination. The party progressed normally. People ate and drank and congratulated us on 15 years of marriage. They toasted to our love, to our future, to the beautiful family we'd built together. Every word felt like a dagger, but I smiled through it all. At 7:30, I clinked my glass to get everyone's attention. "Thank you all so much for being here tonight," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. David and I are so grateful to have such wonderful friends and family in our lives." David beamed at me, probably relieved that I was keeping things simple. 15 years is a long time, I continued. Long enough to really get to know someone, to see who they truly are. And tonight, I want to share with all of you exactly who David Mitchell really is. The room went quiet. David's smile faltered slightly. Jennifer, standing near the kitchen, looked confused. 2 weeks ago, I said, my voice steady and clear, I went to my gynecologist for a routine checkup, and she told me something shocking. She told me that I'd contracted a sexually transmitted infection, chlamydia to be specific. Gasps erupted around the room. David's face went white. Jennifer's eyes went wide with panic. "Now, I've only been with one man in the past 15 years, I continued, looking directly at David, which means the only way I could have contracted this infection is if my husband gave it to me. If my husband had been sleeping with someone else." "Sarah, stop," David said, his voice low and threatening. "This isn't the time or place." "Oh, I think this is exactly the time and place," I interrupted. "Especially since so many of you apparently already knew about the affair. Everyone except me, right?" The silence in the room was deafening. People looked at each other, at the floor, anywhere but at me or David. "Jennifer," I said, turning to face my former best friend, "would you like to tell Mark what you've been doing? Or should I?" Jennifer's face had gone completely pale. Mark looked between his wife and me, confusion morphing into horror. "I have text messages," I continued, pulling out my phone. "Hundreds of them, between my husband and my best friend, talking about their affair, talking about me, laughing about how pathetic and clueless I am, talking about their plans for the future, a future that apparently involved leaving both of their spouses once the timing was right." I started reading messages out loud, every explicit detail, every cruel comment, every plan they'd made. David tried to grab my phone, but I stepped back. Several of his co-workers blocked his path, their faces dark with judgment. "Stop it!" Jennifer screamed. "You're lying." "I have photos too," I said calmly. "Professional photographs taken by a private investigator. David and Jennifer at the Marriott downtown, at that French restaurant on Main Street, at Jennifer's house while Mark was at work. Weeks of documentation proving that this affair has been going on for at least 2 years. Mark's face had turned purple. "Jennifer, is this true?" Jennifer's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Her silence was answer enough. "But wait," I said, my voice taking on a sharp edge. "There's more, because not only has David been cheating on me, exposing me to disease, and planning to leave me, he's also been stealing. From his own company." Now David really looked panicked. "That's not true. You're making things up because you're hurt." "I have bank statements," I interrupted, "showing transfers from client accounts into a personal account under your name. $47,000 over the past 18 months. Embezzled from Harrison and Associates to fund your affair. Your company doesn't know yet, but they will. The authorities will too, unless you want to make this divorce very easy for me." David's boss was at the party. I saw his face go from shock to fury in seconds. "David, what the hell is she talking about?" "I'm talking about fraud," I said. "I'm talking about a man who's been lying to everyone in this room, to his wife, to his employer, to his children. A man who put his own family's health at risk without a second thought. A man who deserves to lose everything." The room erupted. David's colleagues surrounded him, demanding answers. Mark was screaming at Jennifer, who had started crying. Neighbors whispered in shocked tones. The perfect party had become exactly what I'd intended. David's complete exposure. I set my wine glass down on the table and pulled out an envelope from my purse. "David," I said loudly, cutting through the chaos. "You've been served." I handed him the divorce papers right there in front of everyone. His hands shook as he took them. "Sarah, we can talk about this. We can work it out." "There's nothing to work out," I said coldly. "You made your choices. Now you live with the consequences. The house is mine. Custody of the kids is mine. Half of all remaining assets are mine. And if you fight me on any of it, I will ensure that criminal charges are filed for embezzlement. You'll not only lose your family, you'll lose your freedom." I turned to address the room one final time. "Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm sorry the party didn't turn out as planned, but I thought it was important that everyone see the truth, that everyone understand exactly what kind of man David Mitchell is. and what kind of woman Jennifer Morrison is. I picked up my purse and walked toward the door. I'll be staying at a hotel tonight with the kids. David, you have 24 hours to move your things out of my house. Any contact from this point forward goes through my attorney. Congratulations on 15 years of marriage. I hope destroying it was worth it. I walked out of that house with my head held high. Behind me, the shouting intensified. Jennifer's marriage was imploding in real time. David's career was over. His reputation was destroyed. Everything he'd built was collapsing around him. And I felt no guilt, no regret, only a cold, fierce satisfaction. Patricia was waiting in her car outside, just as we'd planned. She'd been on standby in case David tried anything physical. "How did it go?" she asked as I climbed into the passenger seat. "Perfectly," I said. "Absolutely perfectly." The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings, but every step went in my favor. David tried to fight the divorce at first, hiring his own attorney and claiming I'd humiliated him unfairly. But when Patricia presented the medical evidence, the text messages, the photographs, and the financial records, his attorney advised him to accept our terms. Jennifer's husband, Mark, filed for divorce immediately. She lost her house, her comfortable lifestyle, and most of her friends. It turned out that very few people wanted to associate with a woman who'd betrayed her best friend in such a spectacular fashion. David's company fired him and filed criminal charges for embezzlement. He eventually pled guilty to avoid jail time, but he was placed on probation, ordered to pay restitution, and left with a permanent criminal record that made finding work in accounting impossible. He tried to see the kids, but Emma and Noah had heard about what he'd done. Kids talk. Schools are small worlds. They knew their father had cheated on their mother, had lied to everyone, had hurt me deliberately. Emma refused to speak to him for months. Noah would only communicate through stiff, formal emails. I didn't poison them against their father. I didn't have to. His actions spoke for themselves. As for me, I got the house. I got primary custody. I got enough financial support to ensure the kids and I would be stable. And more than that, I got my self-respect back. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I went back to Dr. Chen for a follow-up appointment. The infection was long gone. My health was fully restored. And when she asked how I was doing emotionally, I surprised myself by answering honestly. "I'm doing great," I said. "Better than I have in years." And it was true. Without David's constant, subtle undermining, his dismissiveness, his lies, I'd rediscovered who I was. I'd gone back to school to finish my library science degree. I'd started dating again. I'd built a life that was mine, on my terms, without anyone else's betrayal lurking beneath the surface. Emma and Noah adjusted. Kids are resilient. They saw that I was happier, stronger, more present. Our house became a home again, filled with laughter instead of hidden tension. A year after the divorce, I ran into Jennifer at the grocery store. She looked terrible, tired, worn. She saw me and immediately tried to turn away, but I called out to her. "Jennifer." She froze, then slowly turned to face me. "Sarah." "Hi." We stood there in the produce section, two women whose friendship had been destroyed by her choices. I could have said so many things. I could have been cruel, but I'd already won. I'd already moved on. "I hope you've learned something," I said quietly, "about loyalty, about consequences, about the kind of person you want to be." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. For what it's worth. I'm so sorry." "It's not worth much," I replied. "But maybe it'll be worth something to the next person you're tempted to betray." I walked away from her without looking back, because that's what this whole experience had taught me. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from people who don't deserve a place in your life. To close the door firmly and never open it again. David tried to reconnect several times. He sent emails apologizing, claiming he'd made mistakes, saying he wanted to work things out for the kids' sake. But I never responded. My lawyer handled all communication. He'd burned that bridge so thoroughly that there was nothing left but ashes. 2 years after that devastating doctor's appointment, I'm living a life I never imagined. A life that's entirely mine. I'm finishing my master's degree. I'm dating a kind man who treats me with respect and honesty. My kids are thriving. And every morning when I wake up, I'm grateful for Dr. Rebecca Chen and her professional integrity. Because if she hadn't told me the truth that day, if she'd stayed silent or downplayed what she'd found, I might still be living a lie. I might still be the pathetic, clueless wife that David and Jennifer laughed about. I might still be putting myself at risk, sacrificing my health and happiness for a man who valued me less than nothing. Instead, I'm free. I'm strong. I'm whole. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, please subscribe to this channel and share your experience in the comments. You're not alone. And more importantly, you're not powerless. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who hurt us deepest, but their betrayal doesn't define us. Our response does. My name is Sarah Mitchell. A routine gynecologist appointment revealed my husband's darkest secret and changed my life forever. And I wouldn't change a thing about how I handled it. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's justice. It's truth. It's walking away with your dignity intact and never looking back. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, you deserve better than lies. You deserve better than betrayal. And you have the strength to take your life back, no matter how broken it seems right now. Trust me, I know.